How the U.S. plan for Ukraine is angering Europeans. This is very interesting. Look what it says here. The main winners of implementing the 28-point plan would be U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Zelensky. Now, what did I say? Ukraine has no say-so. Ukraine is not the winner here. Ukraine is just an American satrap that's doing the bidding of NATO. That's it. There would be no NATO troops stationed in Ukraine to secure the new border. Now, you see, notice what it says here. Ukraine would be granted access to the European Union. So if Ukraine is allowed access into the EU and Ukraine becomes an EU member, that would mean Germany being able to deploy troops into Ukraine. That would mean Scandinavia doing the same thing. That would also mean Polish troops being enabled to be deployed into Western Ukraine. And a lot of Western Ukraine used to be a part of Poland. A lot of Western Ukraine used to be a part of Poland, like Lvov. And so Poland could see this as an opportunity to effectively try to take back old territory. Well, we're going to send our troops into West Ukraine. Poland will be in Western Ukraine, and they're going to be there for a long time. And then after a while, maybe we can say, well, you know, our soldiers have been there for so long, and they have houses there, and they built little neighborhoods there, and now you have these little Polish enclaves in Western Ukraine. Maybe we could annex that land. It used to be a part of Poland historically anyway, so why can't we take it? Why not? Why the hell not? And Poland could actually pursue regaining old territories that it lost during the Second World War. But if Ukraine is allowed to become a member of the EU, that would mean EU troops being allowed to be in Ukraine. And you could have German soldiers, Polish soldiers, Scandinavian soldiers, Finnish soldiers in Western Ukraine. And then Russia's going to say, guys, you're doing military buildups in Ukraine, which was supposed to be a buffer zone between us and you. Why are you doing this? And inevitably, there's going to be a clash. Inevitably. So it says here. See, it says here, Ukraine would be granted access to the European Union, which, after all, includes a defense clause in its treaties. So if Ukraine becomes an EU member, you could have EU troops in Ukraine. The Europeans are to contribute another $100 billion to help Ukraine with its reconstruction. Now, it says here, what seems particularly absurd is what is supposed to happen with the Russian state funds frozen by the Europeans. $100 billion are to be invested in Ukraine for reconstruction by the U.S. under a regulated agreement, of which the U.S. is then to pocket 50% of the profits. At the same time, the Europeans are to contribute another $100 billion or 100 billion euros to help Ukraine with its reconstruction. So the United States is saying, we don't want to invest $100 billion of our own dollars. We're just going to steal it from the Russians and invest that $100 billion in frozen Russian assets into Ukraine, into investing in Ukraine. But Europe, you're going to have to invest $100 billion from your own money into Ukraine. But we're not going to do that. So this sounds like another humiliation. And what happened when Germany was humiliated after World War I? They elected Adolf Hitler. And so German nationalism could intensify to the point where the Germans are going to say, we are tired of being a protectorate of the United States. We are tired of being humiliated by the United States. We are tired of being controlled by the United States. It's time for Deutschland to rise up. And the Germans could one day elect another Hitler. And this Hitler, so to speak, will lead a massive revived German empire in Europe. And it's going to be very, very dangerous, and it's going to be very, very dark. You're talking about the revival of Hitlerism. But apparently we have not learned from the lesson of the Versailles Treaty. So it says here, in Berlin and Brussels, the plan, the details of which the German government initially learned not directly from Washington but via US media, was interpreted as a veritable provocation. Very interesting use of words by Der Spiegel here. The Germans saw the fact that America did not consult with them over the 28-point plan as a provocation. Why was it seen, or why is it seen as a provocation? Because it is a humiliation. It is a humiliation in the sense that it is a reminder from the Americans that the Americans are in charge, not you Germans. And so this is a provocation to the Germans to provoke them into wanting independence and to wanting to become a strong military superpower. Like I said, the Germans are reviving their nationalism. They are intensifying their nationalism. And there's going to come a point where they're going to say, you know what? To hell with all this. We want our freedom from the American empire. We are going to elect our major leader, our Napoleon, our, yes, let's use the H word here, our own Hitler. And I think one day, this may sound kind of crazy to some of you, but I think one day they're going to make a movie about Adolf Hitler. And it's not going to be a movie where they completely demonize him. They're going to show the history of Adolf Hitler. They're going to show the life of Adolf Hitler. How he went from being a bum who was homeless and a starving artist to becoming the most famous political leader in modern history. And they're going to do the film in a way where Hitler will be appealing. Now, they're going to show atrocities. They're going to show that Hitler was kind of crazy. They're going to show that Hitler was anti-Semitic. They're going to show that Hitler was a militarist, that he was an expansionist and all that stuff, that he believed in Germanic supremacy and all that stuff. That's true. They're going to show all that stuff. But they're going to show it in a way that's memeable, meaning it can be made into a meme. And they're going to show it in a way that is appealing to younger people. They're going to make it cool. So what do I mean by this? I'll give you guys an example of what I'm talking about here. Let's look at the movie Joker. I was thinking about this last night. Let's look at the film Joker. Joker is a movie about a murderer. Joker is a murderer. He murders multiple people in the film. I'm talking about the Joaquin Phoenix Joker movie. But the film is done in a way where Joker is presented in a very artistic fashion. So he's a murderer, yes, but the texture of the film is very light on the eyes. It's almost like you're looking at a painting, a very well done painting. The texture is very good in the film. Then you have the music. You have the very melancholic yet beautiful cello music that plays in the back as Joker dances in a bathroom, and he dances in a way that's very melodramatic. And then you have the cello music in the background. It's very artistic. It's very appealing to people. And yes, Joker is a murderer, and the film doesn't hold back from this. But at the same time, the way that the film is done, the way that the scenes are presented, it makes these scenes very memeable. People can make them into memes. Another example of what I'm talking about, the film American Psycho with Christian Bale. The film is about a serial killer played by Christian Bale. But the film is done in a way where the scenes are very memeable. And you see this all over social media today. They have the scene where Christian Bale is talking to that other actor, I forgot his name, and and they're talking in this nightclub, and the meme is like, me when I finally meet someone who agrees with me politically, me when I finally meet someone who's just as right-wing and racist as me, blah blah blah. They'll have this sort of 80s retro music playing in the background and all this stuff. And so these scenes are very memeable, and they're very appealing to young people. Same thing goes with Joker. Same thing goes with the Hannibal movies. You look at the movie Hannibal. Hannibal is about, I mean, if you look at Silence of the Lambs, if you look at the Hannibal film, the movie titled Hannibal, these films are about serial killers. Buffalo Bill is a serial killer. The dude who's played by Ralph Fiennes is a serial killer, Red Dragon. And then you have Hannibal himself, who is a serial killer. Yes, the film, or the films, do not pull back from the fact that Hannibal Lecter is a sadistic murderer who is blatantly evil. He eats people, for crying out loud. But the scenes are done in a way that presents Hannibal as artistic. He listens to Bach. He is elegant. He reads Marcus Aurelius. He reads books. He's very articulate. He's very well read. And so you look at these films, and when people talk about these movies, they never say, hey, isn't it kind of strange and disturbing and troubling that they present a serial killer and a cannibal in an artistic way, in a way that makes him look appealing, in a way that makes him look sophisticated? No one ever says that. Everyone praises Hannibal. Everyone praises him. Everyone says, look how great he is. Look how artistic he is. Look how interesting he is. The same thing goes with the Dark Knight film that had Joker. The Joker that was, I forgot the name of the actor who played it, but it was the Joker before Joaquin Phoenix. It was Christopher Nolan's Joker. If you look at Christopher Nolan's Joker movie, when people talk about that movie, they never talk about Batman. They never do. They never talk about Two-Face. They always talk about who? They always talk about Joker. Joker is blatantly evil. He's a murderer. He wants to see the whole world burn, as Alfred says. But at the same time, he is presented in a way where a lot of people like him. He's presented in a way that appeals to a lot of people. Why does this appeal to a lot of people? I mean, that's a whole other 3-hour conversation. But to make it as short and as brief as I can, a lot of people, I'll just put it that way, because this is not everyone, but a lot of people are attracted to evil. But they're not attracted to evil when it's presented in a blatantly ugly way. They are magnetized to evil when evil is presented in an artistic and sophisticated manner. So no one admires the people who did the Rwandan genocide. Because the Rwandan genocide was a bunch of guys with guns and machetes walking around going, "You are from this tribe, I kill you with machete, I hack you to death. I take your baby and smash it on a rock." Right? That's primitive. But you look at the Nazis. The Nazis had aura. They had the uniforms. They had the very well organized marches, the goose stepping. They had the music. They had a face. You look at the faces of the SS officers, very stoic, very serious, very organized, very morbid, but at the same time, they had this look of determination on them. The SS officers also were physically of very big stature. If you look at a lot of these SS officers from Germany, they're physically very big. Broad shoulders, tall, intimidating. They look like warlike people because they were very warlike people. The Germanians have a very long history of being very warlike people. People look at Adolf Hitler when he's on that car, and the car is moving in between the crowds, and the crowds are as big as a city. And you see people, you see literally an ocean of people revering Adolf Hitler. It's like something out of a dream. It's surreal. It's like something out of a painting. So people see that, and there's something about that aesthetic. There's something about that image with all of its trappings, with all of its ornaments, that appeals to a lot of people. Same thing goes with Hannibal. Same thing goes with Joker. Christopher Nolan's Joker, Joaquin Phoenix's Joker. Yes, these characters are portrayed as evil, but there's a sophistication that is given to them that appeals to a lot of people. There was someone who said, and I forgot who said this, but it always sticks to my mind. But there was someone who said something that was very astute. And that is that evil in art is interesting, intriguing, sophisticated. But evil in reality is dry and mundane. So if you can make evil appear sophisticated and artistic and stoic and artistic, that appeals to a lot of people. Hence Hannibal, hence the popularity of Joker, etc. So one day, I think this is going to happen. One day they're going to make a movie where Hitler is going to be presented in a manner similar to how Joker was presented in Joaquin Phoenix's movie. Hitler is not going to be portrayed as this raw evil character, as this primitively evil character, as this Neanderthal, as a buffoon. Hitler is going to be portrayed as a man with very deep thoughts about the world. He will be portrayed as this man who is frustrated with how the world is. And there's going to be scenes in this film where he's going to be complaining about the Jews. And he's going to say something about the Jews that people today, that people in our society will hear and say, wow, he's right. I'm not saying he will be right, but people will say, wow, he's right. That sounds like what's happening today. That sounds like AIPAC. That sounds like the bankers. And the scenes will align with the phenomenon of anti-Semitism that we are currently witnessing. Hitler, most people don't know this, but Hitler was actually homeless at one point in time. He actually lived in a homeless shelter. They used to have these big houses for homeless people in Austria where Hitler lived. And Hitler lived in this house for homeless people. So you would live in this. Now you would go out and work. During the day you would work, but at night you would stay in this house. So during the day, Hitler would try to sell his art. He was this starving, struggling artist. And then at night he would stay in this house. This film is going to show that. It's going to show Hitler as this impoverished, starving artist who is frustrated with the world. And the way the scenes will be portrayed will be very artistic. The texture of the film will be very attractive, like the Joker movie. There's going to be there's going to be music that's very attractive. And the film will be memed to death. And the film will be a success. Not because Hitler is unpopular, but the opposite. Hitler is very popular. This is my thought. I could be wrong, but I think this is going to happen one day. I think they're going to make a Hitler movie that's going to be done in the same type of style as Joaquin Phoenix's Joker. That's my opinion. That's my opinion. Did you see the movie Look Who's Back? Hitler Wakes Up in Modern Times? Yes. I didn't see the full film, but I did see. Now, you see, this is an attestament to what I'm talking about here. There was a movie or a show that was produced in Germany called Look Who's Back. And it got an actor to look almost exactly like Hitler. And they had him walk through the streets of Germany. And people, white Germans and non-white people living in Germany, wanted to take photos with him. They wanted to take selfies with this Hitler reenactor. Which really, and this was back in like 2016, 2017, or somewhere around there. So it says here that Marie-Agnes Strack-Zimmermann, chair of the EU Defense Committee, told Der Spiegel, with this absurd plan, Putin is buying time. The bombings will continue. So again, they're portraying this plan as helping Russia, which means that they're portraying Trump as a friend of Russia. So what are they saying here? Exactly what I've been saying this whole time. They're saying we cannot trust the Americans, therefore we must make Germany great again. German security expert Carlo Massala sees the U.S. plan as a threat not only to Ukraine, but also to the security of Europe. Okay, so they see Trump's plan as a threat to the security of Germany. So what is this guy really saying? What he's saying, what this German security expert is saying, is that America is a threat to Germany. That's what they're saying. You see what's happening here? The German-American alliance is going through a divide. It's going through a chasm. And this chasm is desired by the United States. The United States wants this. Why? Because they want Germany to rise up. So the Germans are saying, we can't trust the Americans. We have to make Germany great again. Make Deutschland great again. But what this guy is saying, what this Carlo Massala guy is saying, is that America is a threat to the security of Germany. We cannot trust America, therefore, make Deutschland great again. Massala compares the potential deal to the Treaty of Versailles, with the not insignificant difference that this time the aggressor is not punished but rewarded. So, I read this earlier today and I thought to myself, you know what? I also see the Treaty of Versailles in the current geopolitical situation in Europe, but I see the opposite of what this guy is saying. This guy is saying that Putin is Hitler, and we are appealing to the modern day Hitler, Putin. And so therefore this deal is like the Versailles in the sense that, not in the sense that it's provoking Putin to anger, but in the sense that it's awarding Putin, who is the Hitler of our time, right? This is the framework that this guy is making here. But I also see the Treaty of Versailles being paralleled in this situation, in the sense that Germany is tired of being humiliated. In fact, what I'm saying is closer to history. It's closer to what actually happened in history. What I'm saying is actually more fitting to what happened in history. This guy is saying, oh, it's like the Treaty of Versailles, but the opposite, because it's awarding the Hitler of our time, Vladimir Putin. No. The Treaty of Versailles is being paralleled here. But in the sense that Germany has been humiliated for so long that it's going to reach a breaking point. Just like Germany before Hitler was humiliated by Versailles to the point where they elected Adolf Hitler, and then Germany returned to the warpath. Germany is being humiliated, and it continues to be humiliated, and eventually Germany is going to reach a breaking point where they are going to elect another Hitler. That's how I see the Treaty of Versailles being paralleled in this situation. This guy just took the Treaty of Versailles and said, well, it's like the Treaty of Versailles, but, instead of angering the Hitler, it's actually rewarding him. That's not what happened in the Treaty of Versailles. What happened during the Treaty of Versailles was that Germany was humiliated. So your historical parallel here is not even adequate because it's not actually fitting what happened in the history. It doesn't even rhyme with what happened in the history, in the account. What happened in the account was Germany was humiliated to the point where it got angry and went to war and invaded Poland. And what I'm saying is Germany right now is being humiliated to the point where eventually it's going to go to war and it will return back to Adolf Hitler. Anyway, just a thought. Germany's new 377 billion euro military wish list. Now, people say, Germany's not going to rise up. That's not going to happen. They don't have the economy. They don't have the money. They sure as hell do. They sure as hell do, guys. Now look at this. Friedrich Merz said the quiet part out loud back in May. Germany intends to build the Bundeswehr into the strongest conventional army in Europe. In Europe. Pledging to give it all the financial resources it needs. Germany has the money. Germany has the population. And Germany also has the geopolitical advantage in the sense that it's bordering with all these allies. It has the Netherlands. Its neighbors with the Baltic region, which is very anti-Russia, so it could use the Baltic region for auxiliary troops. It could use Scandinavia for further auxiliary troops. It could use possibly the French, possibly Italian troops. Germany, with its allies, has a ton of resources and has a massive capacity for being a major world superpower. So it says here, 5 months later, the German chancellor aims to add the hardware to that ambition, according to new international government documents seen by Politico. The sprawling 39-page list lays out 377 billion euros in desired buys across land, air, sea, space, and cyber. The document is a planning overview of arms purchases that will be spelled out in the German military's 2026 budget. But many are longer-term purchases for which there is no clear time frame. Taken together, it's a comprehensive roadmap for Germany's long-overdue defense overhaul, anchored firmly in domestic industry. Anchored firmly in domestic industry. You guys hear that? Domestic industry. Germany is an industrial powerhouse. They make so much stuff, they don't know what to do with it. They make so much stuff, a lot of times they make more stuff than they can actually sell, than they can actually export. Sometimes they have this influx of domestically made products that it's just too much to even export. So they have the industrial capacity to make a massive military industry. And I've been saying this for years, and for some reason I always get the same bullshit arguments. Oh, Germany doesn't have the population. They don't have the economy. The economy is garbage, guys. They have plenty of money. And do you know what else Germany has? Do you know what else Germany has? Germany has plenty of coal. Lots of coal. Endless amounts of coal. Do you know what you can do with coal? You can make synthetic petroleum. That's exactly what the Nazis did. The Nazis made synthetic petroleum. And they also got oil from Azerbaijan. And they also got, well, not from Azerbaijan, sorry, they got oil from Romania. So it says here, taken together, it's a okay, I already read this. Politically, the timing tracks with Merz's shift to a new financing model. Since the spring, Berlin has moved to carve out defense from Germany's constitutional debt break. So in other words, it used to be that Germany used to be very strict when it came to military spending. Merz entered office as Chancellor of Germany, and he just got rid of all that. He said, nope, no limits. We can spend as much money as we want on the military, on the Bundeswehr, on the German armed forces. So now the German armed forces has endless amounts of money at its disposal that they can use to invest into the military and make it powerful. And so it says here, allowing sustained multi-year spending beyond the nearly exhausted 100 billion euro special fund set up under former Chancellor Olaf Scholz's tenure. Items on the list will eventually appear in smaller tranches when they're mature enough for a parliamentary budget committee vote. All procurements valued over 25 million euros need the committee's sign-off. The documents show that the Bundeswehr wants to launch about 320 new weapons and equipment projects over the next year's budget cycle. Of those, 178 have a listed contractor. The rest remain still open, showing that much of the Bundeswehr's modernization plan is still on the drawing board. German companies dominate the identifiable tenders with around 160 projects worth about 182 billion euros. Tied to domestic firms. Rheinmetall is by far the biggest winner. The Dusseldorf-based group and its affiliated ventures appear in 53 separate planning lines, worth more than 88 billion euros. So Rheinmetall right now is the biggest. It's the biggest defense company, military weapons company in all of Europe. It's massive. It's one of the biggest ones on Earth right now. It's huge. And their stock has skyrocketed. Why is that? It's because, well, follow the money. The money is the writing on the wall. The money shows us that Germany is pursuing militarism, that Germany is pursuing becoming a massive military superpower. So it says here, around 32 billion euros would flow directly to Rheinmetall, while another 56 billion euros is linked to subsidiaries and joint ventures, such as the Puma and Boxer fighting vehicle programs run with KNDS. In air defense, the Bundeswehr aims to procure 561 Skyranger 30 short-range turret systems, blah, blah, blah. I mean, they're really pursuing becoming a massive military power again. It's just very obvious. We can read more. It says here, in air defense, the Bundeswehr aims to procure 561 Skyranger 30 short-range turret systems for counter-drone and short-range protection, a program fully under Rheinmetall's lead. Along with that come grenades and rifle rounds in the millions. DL Defense emerges as the Bundeswehr's second major industrial anchor after Rheinmetall. The Bavarian missile manufacturer appears in 21 procurement lines worth 17.3 billion euros. The largest share comes from the IRIS-T family, which is set to form the backbone of Germany's future air defense architecture, etc., etc. I'm not going to read this whole thing, but it talks about, I think it talks about the new European fighter jet. So it says here, one of the most politically charged plans on the Bundeswehr's wish list is the potential top-up of 15 F-35 jets from Lockheed Martin, worth about $2.5 billion under the U.S. foreign military sales system. And then it says here... Yep, right here. These would keep Germany's nuclear sharing role intact, but also retain its reliance on American maintenance, software, and mission data access. It could also signal a further German convergence on American weaponry it cannot replace, just as political tensions deepen over the Franco-German Spanish 6th generation fighter jet, the Future Combat Air System. So the Germans and the French and the Spanish, they're forming their own fighter jet called the Future Combat Air System. And it's going to be a 6th, not a 5th, a 6th generation fighter jet. It's going to compete with the American fighter jet. So the Americans want to sell F-35s to the Germans to keep the Germans dependent on the American empire. The thing is that the Germans are already pursuing an independently European-made fighter jet. And this is going to compete with the American F-35. So the Europeans, they already have the Euro Typhoon. And the Euro Typhoon has been shown to have the ability to crush the F-35 in a dogfight. It's a pretty serious piece of weaponry. So once the Europeans have their own independently made 6th generation fighter jet, they're going to be very militarily independent at that point. And who knows, maybe one day the Germans will create a purely German aircraft, a purely German fighter jet that will be a state-of-the-art fighter jet that will be able to compete with the F-35 and vanquish the F-35 in the battlefield. Who knows? But it's very obvious what's happening. The Germans are pursuing an independent military with their European auxiliaries. I think that's very obvious.